Welcome back. Before we begin, a reminder. This presentation is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. If you're experiencing significant anxiety or other mental health concerns, please consult a qualified healthcare provider who can offer guidance tailored to your specific situation. The strategies discussed here help many people, but they may not be right for everyone. If you're working with a mental health professional or taking medication, please continue following their guidance and discuss any new approaches with them first. With that said, I hope you find this information helpful. Let's begin. In Part 1, we explored the body and its role in anxiety. In Part 2, we examine the mind and its thinking patterns. Now, we arrive at something deeper still, meaning itself. We've studied the physical, and we've studied the psychological. Now, we turn to the philosophical, to the big questions about existence, freedom, purpose, and what it means to live a meaningful life. These aren't just abstract ideas for ivory tower discussions. They have practical power for managing anxiety. You might wonder, what do philosophy and meaning have to do with anxiety? Isn't anxiety just about worried thoughts and physical symptoms? But consider this. Much of anxiety isn't about specific threats. It's about existential concerns. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of the unknown, fear of not being good enough, fear of what others think, fear of missing out, fear of making wrong choices. These fears aren't really about tigers or car accidents. They're about meaning, identity, and how we relate to the uncertainty of being alive. Philosophical traditions from ancient Stoics to modern existentialists invite us to see anxiety not as an illness to destroy, but as a messenger. A call to live more awake, more authentically, more deliberately. This perspective doesn't eliminate anxiety, but it can transform your relationship with it. Thinkers like Søren Kierkegaard, Martin Heidegger, and Viktor Frankl described anxiety as the cost of awareness. We humans have a unique burden and gift. We know that we're alive. We know that we're free to make choices, and we know that we will someday die. Other animals don't carry this knowledge. They live in the present moment, responding to immediate threats and pleasures. But humans live also in the imagined future, in the remembered past. We can envision countless possible futures. We can wonder about meaning and purpose. We can contemplate our own mortality. These abilities are remarkable gifts. They allow us to create, to plan, to build civilizations, to love deeply. But they come with a burden, existential anxiety. Kierkegaard called anxiety the dizziness of freedom. When you stand at the edge of a cliff and look down, you might feel dizzy, not because you want to jump, but because you could. You have that terrible freedom. You could step forward. Nothing is physically stopping you. The dizziness comes from confronting that freedom. Existential anxiety is similar. It's the dizziness that comes from recognizing how many choices we face, how uncertain the future is, and how much responsibility we carry for our own lives. We're not locked into predetermined paths. We have to choose, and choosing means accepting responsibility for the outcomes. But here's the crucial insight. If anxiety arises from freedom and awareness, it can also hint at purpose because it reveals what is truly important to you. Anxiety often intensifies whenever your choices shine a light on your true values. When there's a gap between who you are at your core and who you're pretending to be in the world, that gap fills with anxiety. Living authentically, aligned with what matters deeply to you reduces that friction. Think about the word authentic. It shares a root with author. To live authentically is to author your own life, to write your own story according to your values, rather than following someone else's script. Ask yourself, whose expectations am I living by? My own? My parents? My culture's? My friends? Social media's? There's nothing wrong with considering others' perspectives. We live in community, and relationships matter. We can't ignore everyone else's opinions and still function in society. But when you build your entire life around meeting external expectations while ignoring your internal compass, anxiety builds. Maybe you chose a career path because it seemed impressive or lucrative, but it doesn't resonate with your actual interests or values. Maybe you maintain relationships that drain you because you feel obligated. Maybe you present a carefully curated image to the world that doesn't match your inner experience. Maybe you spend your time on things that don't matter to you because you think you should. These misalignments are exhausting. They create a constant background hum of unease, a feeling that something isn't quite right, even when nothing is obviously wrong. You might recognize this as a particular type of anxiety, not acute panic, but chronic unease, a sense that you're living someone else's life rather than your own, a nagging feeling that you're not being true to yourself. This kind of anxiety doesn't respond well to breathing exercises or cognitive restructuring alone. It's calling for something deeper, a realignment of your life with your actual values. The more your actions match your inner convictions, the quieter that background hum becomes. This doesn't mean being selfish or disregarding consequences. It doesn't mean ignoring your responsibilities or hurting people who depend on you. It means making conscious choices that reflect what truly matters to you, even when those choices are difficult. Sometimes this realignment requires big changes. A new career, ending a relationship, moving to a different place. But more often, it involves smaller adjustments, spending more time on activities that matter to you, speaking up about your needs, saying no to commitments that drain you, being more honest about who you are. Authenticity reduces anxiety not by eliminating challenges, but by ensuring that whatever challenges you face are in service of something meaningful to you. Struggle in service of your values feels different from struggle in service of someone else's expectations. Freedom sounds thrilling until you see its weight. Endless options mean endless ownership. Every choice could have been different. Every outcome is partially your responsibility. This realization can be paralyzing. If everything is possible, how do you choose? If you're responsible for your choices, how do you live with mistakes? If any path is open, which path do you take? Existential philosophers argue that responsibility balances freedom. It transforms that dizzying sense of infinite possibility into grounded action. You are never fully trapped because how you respond always remains yours. Even in the most constrained circumstances, you still have some degree of choice about your attitude, your interpretation, your next small step. Viktor Frankl demonstrated this in the most extreme way imaginable. In concentration camps, where nearly everything was controlled by captors, prisoners still maintained some freedom. The freedom to choose their attitude, to find meaning even in suffering, to support a fellow prisoner, to maintain their dignity internally, even when it was stripped externally. Most of us will never face such extreme circumstances, which means we have far more freedom than we often acknowledge. And with that freedom comes responsibility, not as a burden to fear, but as the engine of meaningful action. When anxiety paralyzes you with questions like, "What if I make the wrong choice?" Remember, the fact that you can choose at all is proof of your freedom, and whatever you choose, you can learn from it and choose again. Life isn't one choice that determines everything. It's thousands of choices that shape your path over time. In another vein, the ancient Stoics, philosophers like Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca, developed one of the most practical frameworks for managing anxiety ever created. Their central insight remains powerful 2,000 years later. Stoicism divides reality into two categories: what you can control and what you cannot control. What can you control? Your thoughts, your actions, your responses, your effort, your character, how you interpret events. What can't you control? Other people's thoughts and actions, the past, the future, outcomes, other people's opinions, most external events, natural circumstances. Worry arises when you blur this boundary. When you treat uncontrollable things as if they should be controllable, you create suffering. Imagine trying to control the weather. You'd fail constantly and feel frustrated. Yet people do this equivalent with social situations. I need everyone to like me. That's trying to control others' opinions. This past mistake shouldn't have happened. That's trying to control the past. I must ensure this project succeeds. That's trying to control the outcome instead of just controlling your effort. Consider how much of your anxiety comes from trying to control things outside your control. You worry about whether your presentation will go well, when what you can actually control is how well you prepare. You worry about whether people will judge you, when what you can actually control is whether you act with integrity. You worry about whether the future will unfold as you hope, when what you can actually control is what you do today. The Stoic practice is simple, but transformative. Ask often, "Is this mine to control?" If yes, act with integrity, give your best effort, make wise choices. Then accept whatever results follow, knowing you did what was in your power. If no, practice release. Notice the desire to control. Acknowledge that it's outside your power and redirect your energy toward what actually is within your control. This doesn't mean you stop caring about outcomes. It means you recognize the difference between influence and control. You can influence many things without being able to control them. You can prepare well for a presentation, but you can't control how the audience responds. You can be a good and authentic friend, but you can't control whether the friendship lasts forever. You can make wise choices, but you can't control all the consequences. When you focus your energy on what you can control, your preparation, your effort, your responses, your character, you find peace. When you focus your energy on what you cannot control, other people's reactions, future uncertainties, past mistakes, you find anxiety. This simple question, "Is this mine to control?" has guided minds from Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor writing in his private journal, to modern resilience coaches working with athletes and executives. It remains as useful now as it was 2 millennia ago. The Stoics practiced something called the evening review. Each night, they would reflect on their day, examining where they acted well and where they could improve, all without self-attack. This isn't about guilt or shame. It's about learning. It's reason applied to your own behavior, creating a feedback loop for growth. You might ask yourself, where did I act according to my values today? Where did I get caught up in anxiety or anger? What was within my control, and how did I handle it? What was outside my control, and did I release it or struggle against it? What would I do differently if I faced a similar situation tomorrow? The key is maintaining an observer's perspective, curious and honest, but not cruel. You're examining your actions like a scientist examines data, not judging yourself like a harsh critic condemns a criminal. This evening, review practice differs from rumination. Rumination involves going over the same worries repeatedly, without any resolution. It's unproductive and increases anxiety. The Stoic evening review is purposeful and structured. You examine the day once, extract lessons, and then let it go. The goal is learning, not punishment. Some people find it helpful to write their reflections in a journal. The act of writing can create additional distance and clarity. But even a few minutes of quiet mental reflection before sleep can be valuable. The key is consistency, making it a regular practice rather than something you do only when things go wrong. Reason, applied consistently and kindly, becomes emotional grace. It helps you learn from mistakes without drowning in regret. It helps you celebrate successes without arrogance. This practice reduces anxiety because it replaces rumination with reflection. Instead of endlessly replaying mistakes and worrying about them, which accomplishes nothing except creating more suffering, you extract lessons and move forward. The review happens once, thoughtfully, and then you let go. We keep invisible scorecards in our minds. How successful am I compared to others? How much do people approve of me? How perfect is my performance? How much have I achieved? These scorecards create constant competition and comparison. They make life a series of tests you're trying to pass. And anxiety is the fear of failing those tests. Stoic practice suggests discarding the scorecards altogether. Achievement loses meaning when it replaces peace. Success becomes empty when it's pursued only for external validation or comparison with others. This doesn't mean not having goals or not trying to improve. It means detaching your sense of worth from outcomes and other people's opinions. It means finding satisfaction in the effort itself, in acting according to your values rather than only in results. Ask yourself, what if nobody was watching? What if there were no rankings or comparisons? What would I do? What would matter to me? Those answers point toward your authentic values, the ones that create genuine meaning rather than just feeding anxiety. When you do things because they matter to you, not because you want to impress or outperform others, anxiety loses much of its fuel. Acceptance frees energy once trapped in judgment. When you're not constantly evaluating and comparing, you have more attention available for actually living. Of all philosophical practices, self-acceptance might be the most radical intervention against anxiety. Believing I am enough as I am dismantles performance anxiety at its root. This doesn't mean complacency. It doesn't mean you stop growing or improving. It means you stop making your worth conditional on meeting certain standards. Think about how you might talk to a young child who's learning to walk. When they stumble, you don't say, "You're worthless. You're a failure. Everyone else walks better than you." That would be cruel and absurd. Instead, you say, "It's okay. Keep trying. You're doing great." You offer encouragement. You see their inherent worth, regardless of their current skill level. You recognize that mistakes are part of learning, not evidence of fundamental inadequacy. Now ask yourself, why don't you treat yourself with that same kindness? Self-acceptance means extending to yourself the same compassion you'd naturally offer a child, a friend, or anyone you care about. It means recognizing that you are a work in progress, like every other human being, and that your worth isn't determined by your achievements or your mistakes. When you practice self-acceptance, performance anxiety loses its power. You can try new things without fearing that failure will prove you're worthless. You can make mistakes without spiraling into shame. You can receive criticism without feeling destroyed. This is perhaps the most counterintuitive insight about anxiety. Accepting yourself as you are actually makes change easier, not harder. When you're not constantly fighting against your own imperfections, you have energy available for growth. When you're not living in fear of being exposed as inadequate, you can take the risks necessary for learning. Self-acceptance isn't the enemy of self-improvement. It's the foundation that makes genuine improvement possible. Think about how much of your anxiety comes from fear of not being enough, not smart enough, not accomplished enough, not likable enough, not successful enough. What if you simply decided that you are enough right now as you are? Not that you couldn't improve, but that your basic worth isn't in question? How much anxiety would that release? You're enough as you are right now, and you can still grow and improve. These aren't contradictory, they're complementary. You don't have to earn the right to exist or to be valued. That right is already yours. Body, mind, and philosophy weave together here. We've traveled through 3 territories, and now we can see how they connect. Biology steadies you, exercise, nutrition, sleep, and sometimes medication calm your nervous system. When your body is well cared for, you have a stable foundation from which to work. Cognition clarifies you. Recognizing and correcting distorted thoughts helps you see reality more accurately. When your thinking is clear, you can respond wisely rather than reacting fearfully. Philosophy deepens you. Understanding meaning, values, and acceptance helps you face life's inherent uncertainties with courage and grace. When you know what matters to you and accept yourself as you are, anxiety loses much of its grip. You don't have to choose between these approaches. They support each other. A calm body makes clear thinking easier. Clear thinking makes philosophical reflection more accessible. Philosophical grounding makes biological interventions more effective because you understand why they matter. Imagine a 3-legged stool. Remove any leg, and the stool becomes unstable. Body, mind, and meaning. All 3 legs support the stability you're building. Anxiety will visit again. That's part of being human. You haven't failed if you still feel anxious sometimes. You're not broken if worry still arises. But now you meet anxiety differently. You're grounded in your body, understanding its physical responses and knowing how to calm them. You're clear in your mind, recognizing distorted thoughts and knowing how to question them. You're enriched by meaning, understanding your values, and knowing what truly matters. Anxiety becomes less of an enemy and more of information, a signal that something needs attention. Maybe your body needs rest. Maybe your mind needs to examine a thought pattern. Maybe your life needs realignment with your values. You have tools now, biological interventions to calm your nervous system, cognitive techniques to clarify your thinking, philosophical practices to ground you in meaning. You don't have to use all of them all the time. Some days, a walk and deep breathing are enough. Other days, you might need cognitive restructuring or a conversation with a therapist or a long reflection on what really matters to you. The tools you need vary with the situation, the intensity of your anxiety, and what's happening in your life. The key is knowing you have options. You're not helpless. You're not at anxiety's mercy. When anxiety rises, you can choose how to respond. You can breathe slowly and calm your body. You can question anxious thoughts and see them clearly. You can remember what's within your control and what isn't. You can return to your values and ask what truly matters. Some practical suggestions as you move forward. Start small. Pick one intervention from each area: body, mind, and meaning, and practice it consistently for a few weeks. Maybe it's a daily walk, the 3-column thought exercise, and a nightly reflection on what's within your control. Build these practices into your routine so they become habits rather than emergency measures. Be patient with yourself. These skills develop over time. You won't transform your relationship with anxiety overnight, and there will be setbacks along the way. That's normal and expected. What matters is the general direction, not perfection in any single moment. Seek support when you need it. There's no weakness in working with a therapist, a counselor, or a doctor. These professionals have tools and perspectives that can accelerate your progress. Managing anxiety isn't something you have to do entirely alone. Peace is a practice, not a destination. It's something you cultivate through daily choices, what you feed your body, how you train your mind, how you align your life with your values. And you already know the first steps. Take a deep breath. Move your body. Question that worried thought. Remember what truly matters to you. Choose one small action that reflects your values. Start there, and trust that each practice builds on the last, creating a foundation of calm that can weather life's inevitable storms. Remember that progress isn't linear. There will be good days and hard days. There will be times when anxiety seems to have loosened its grip, and times when it comes roaring back. This is normal. It doesn't mean you're failing or that the tools don't work. Healing happens in spirals, not straight lines. You circle back over familiar territory, but each time with more skill and understanding. Be gentle with yourself on this journey. You're doing important, difficult work. Learning to manage anxiety is one of the most valuable investments you can make in your own well-being and in your ability to live a full, meaningful life. You are enough. You have what you need, and you're not alone in this. May your next breath remind you, peace is possible, one moment at a time. Before concluding, I want to emphasize that the 3 videos on strategies for reducing anxiety specifically address anxiety that is disproportionate to any actual threat, the kind of anxiety many people feel even when they are truly not under threat. These strategies are also helpful when anxiety is proportional to a genuine threat. That's when the intensity of the anxiety is what you might expect or is reasonable for the threat. While the 3 strategies are not likely to fully eliminate the anxiety you're experiencing in a real threat, they can help you respond to the threat with a relatively clear-headed and rational approach. They have value even when the threats are real. Once again, you are enough. May your next breath remind you, peace is possible, one moment at a time. Thanks for listening.